information, should you choose to accept it.
It's a quest. It's a quest for fun.
Well, The Rock says, why don't we just cut right to the chase?
Okay, now he wants to get together. Well, he wants to talk.
I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
It's showtime, folks!
What are you?
Greetings and salutations, everyone. Happy Halloween 2020. My name is Ryan of Neuroculture. This is our interview series. In that intro you just saw at the top of the show, we want to take this opportunity to thank Josh Bauer of J. Bauer Art for putting that intro for us together. And if you're interested, if you need some graphic design work or need an intro done, he is the person to talk to. Follow him on all forms of social media at J. Bauer Art. But since it is Halloween 2020, and it's on a weekend, it's on a Saturday no less, and that hasn't happened in a very long time, if my memory serves me correctly. But with that being said, our guest this week is no stranger to Halloween. He is no stranger to the horror/thriller genre. He has worked on some of the most influential horror films in cinematic history. He is the one, the only, Mick Strawn. Mick, how you doing today, buddy?
Oh, sorry. Am I on? The thing working?
Yes, you are. How are you?
Pretty good. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, sir. Thank you so much for being with us. We do appreciate it. So it's Halloween 2020. A lot of things are going on. People are throwing some get-togethers. Some people are throwing together movie marathons. But, we're going to talk about some specific...
And some people are just throwing themselves over cliffs to get it over and done with.
Maybe so. I haven't dug too much into those stories that may or not have been posted on all forms of social media. But aside from that,
every form of social media, all the time,
all the time, probably. Now, as we go along the course of this show, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions for our guest, Mick Strawn, please drop them in the comment section in the live chat. We will be monitoring that as we go throughout the course of the show. So please, feel free to chime in. Feel free to do so and share this video with your friends, your family, and your coworkers. Who knows? Might get some entertainment out of it. First things first here, Mick. What were some of your favorite horror/thriller movies and or TV series when you were growing up?
Well, I was growing up in a really weird time. I was growing up in the 60s. And in the 60s, all of the films that were the classic Universal films and the 50s schlock films and all the classic horror films had been pushed. I mean, there was no other place for them. So they had all been, there's like no other release place for them. So they had all been shoved to late night TV where you had people like Elvira and you had Chiller, and you had like every local market in America had somebody that was showing old horror movies at night. And so I was raised on late night Frankenstein and Invisible Man and Bride of Frankenstein and Son of Frankenstein and Cousin of Frankenstein and Frankenstein's Mechanic and everything that you could possibly imagine. And it was a case of like all those films were just pressed into me. I didn't even think of them as being horror movies. They were just movies. and these days, it's kind of the same. You've got the same access as we did back then. It wasn't up until the 80s and the late 70s that access started to be curbed. But then almost immediately, as soon as like a lot of those late night shows started to taper off, immediately we started to get towards the end of the 80s, we started to get videotapes, and then later on, CDs and so forth. And it was another resurrection. I think it's kind of interesting that the huge renaissance of horror films came at the same time that we started to get VCRs back, that we started to get a new technology to actually be able to play these later on and play them again and play them, not as the sequence of when they were being released in a theater.
Absolutely. And to get into the Halloween spirit, I did actually sit down and treat myself to rewatching those classic Universal monster movies, more specifically Lon Chaney Jr.'s The Wolfman and Creature from the Black Lagoon, which is certainly one of my favorite creature features.
Right. I personally love James Whale's productions. James Whale would have been Frankenstein, and Bride of Frankenstein, and The Invisible Man. Because James Whale had I thought the original Wolfman was probably a little bit weak. Some of the British versions were definitely a lot better. I thought Lon Chaney was probably one of the least talented in the original horror people. I think that he was better later on in his career.
Sure.
But James Whale directing The Invisible Man is an absolute treat.
Yeah, I actually did sit down and rewatch that. I believe with Claude Rains. I love it. The Invisible Man is so good.
It's so good. I mean, the thing is, The Invisible Man stands up today because what it is about The Invisible Man is the supporting. The supporting cast is hilarious. I cannot think of the woman because she was also she was also in
was it Gloria Stewart is who I'm thinking of?
The Screamer? No,
yeah.
You know what? She's one of the side characters. I think she was she was the keeper of the house, right?
Sure.
In Invisible Man, and she was in Bride of Frankenstein. She was the head of the house. She was the head maid of the house.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And her screaming is hilarious. Her screaming is like the best thing. I mean, her up at the windmill, as her husband falls down, into the thing, and she's like this.
Yeah, the whole nine. Yeah, it fit the bill certainly for those films in that respective time period, and it's good stuff. You can learn a lot from the classics and The Invisible Man, and certainly a few others. I mean, we can go on for hours about it, but aside from that,
right,
those are some good films. And my next question to you is: when did you decide? What was the moment that came to your mind that you decided that you wanted specifically to work within the horror genre?
It was entirely accidental. And I mean, it was entirely accidental because when I started, I kind of got in with my sister, and I started in the business running a crew for her. She was doing costumes in the East, and she came west, and with a friend of hers who was directing, and he made her. And this is what you do: you always hire your friends, because your friends won't tell anybody that you don't know what you're doing. So he hired her, and to be the set painter, and she turned around and hired me to run the crews. And I had a lot of construction experience, and I ran the crews from there, and then just decided that was it. I was going to stick around, but it wasn't a horror film. It was a commercial, sci-fi commercial called Play Safe, which if you're Canadian, every Canadian in the world knows Play Safe, and the robot Astra. I had the distinction of being the one who helped paint Astra, and I know that means nothing here, but boy, you go north of here, and holy shit, everybody knows about that. So I didn't even know that until a couple of years ago. But so then from then on, I started doing horror films almost specifically because I was just really good at stuff, and I liked horror films. Now, I know this sounds funny, but I liked horror films because they were complicated, because they had a lot. A horror film is a construct that has a tendency to use more of the effects people, more of the set people, and more of. It's an interesting process, and it takes a lot of labor, and it has to be well organized. And all those things are something that I was uniquely good at, and I just stuck around. And the more I stuck around, the more people saw that I was good at all those things. And you put one in the other, and say, and next thing you know, I'm doing all horror films, and I'm perfectly happy with it.
So I'm assuming because of the opportunities you got in working with your sister, that's eventually what led you to, and that leads into my next question. How did you get the opportunity to work on something known as, what is it called? Oh yeah. The reason we're here today is to celebrate the fact that you worked on not just one, but two of the installments of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. So how did you get the opportunity to work on the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise with Freddy Krueger and company?
Well, that's kind of a funny story. In fact, most of the stories that I tell are funny stories. I was working in Peter Chesney's shop. I had met him a couple of years before, and Peter Chesney was Image Engineering, and Image Engineering was doing mechanical effects, and they got the mechanical effects contract on Nightmare on Elm Street 3 before it had a director.
Oh.
Well, the thing is here's a problem you always get into is you always have to put your effects people on first, because a lot of that stuff has to be worked out, and it has to be tested, and it has to, and you know, like the snake going up the walls and all the rest of that had to be put together before anything else, so that you knew what you could do. You know what I'm saying? In other words, it was sort of like by the time they got around to doing storyboards and stuff, it was already there, you know? So I just happened to be working in Peter's shop, and I took the billing in and down to New Line Cinema, and they had just moved into this office on Rodeo. And it was 8 floors up, and I was waiting at the base of the elevator, and a friend of mine who I knew happened to work occasionally for New Line Cinema happens to come up, and we get to talking, and he says, "Well, what are you doing here?" I said, "Well, I'm working with Peter's shop, and we're just finishing up, and you know, we finished up all the prep on Nightmare on Elm Street 3." And he goes, "Funny thing, you know what? I just got hired as the producer of that." I go, "Really? So it's you and Rachel Talalay, huh?" And as that, we stepped into the elevator, and we went up 8 floors. And by the time we got up to the 8th floor, I had already said, "Hey, dude, you need art directors or a production designer, and I know art department, and oddly enough, I know all about the effects." He goes, "That's a great idea. You're hired." And I walked out of the elevator, and I had the job.
Wow, that's amazing. Great elevator pitch.
Yeah, it really was. It's really funny because I had never heard of the phrase elevator pitch. And the only reason it was in an elevator because that's what we were waiting for at the time.
Going up 8 floors in this elevator, you had a little bit more time than the average person would to make an elevator pitch respectively, because what I learned about in class is that you only have less than 30 seconds to make a pitch.
Yeah, well, that's true. You normally do.
Yeah, less than 30 seconds. But so you get the opportunity. It comes about. You get the gig. So what was it like working with the cast and crew on those 2 films, Dream Warriors and The Dream Master?
Well, I have to say, most of my work was actually with Rachel Talalay and the directors for the most part. As far as the crew went, or as far as the cast went, usually I would only see them when they were popping around the sets ahead of time, because whenever I was called into the set, I was in trouble. Because you see, as the production designer, you have to be, or the art director, you have to be a step above. You have to be a step ahead of filming. So most of my experience on filming is like just walking by and standing there and watching it film for a little bit. Or if it was really an interesting thing that I wanted to see, I'd stop and see it. Otherwise, I was pretty damn busy making sure that tomorrow you had something to shoot and that the next day you had something to shoot. But
okay.
I was pretty good at it.
Yeah, and this is coming. I've had, a few weeks ago, I had the opportunity to sit down and watch Nightmare on Elm Street's 2, because I remember watching the original, but I wanted to catch up on some of the other installments. So I watched 2, 3, and 4, and I see 3 was one of the things that I liked about Dream Warriors. I think the end credit song by Dokken. That is some good stuff. Not gonna lie, Dream Warriors.
Yeah.
It's pretty good stuff. I'm not gonna lie. And to see a young at the time, I guess, up and coming Patricia Arquette.
Oh yeah.
That was something else. I'm like, wait a minute, Patricia Arquette is in this, and you got Lawrence Fishburne's in this.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, you got all these. At the time they were young up and coming actors. I remember Lawrence Fishburne. He was cruising around with Pee Wee at Pee Wee's Playhouse.
Right. Exactly.
And then I remember seeing Patricia Arquette years later on the original, the drama series known as Medium.
Right, on Medium, right.
She was on that, and then she did CSI Cyber for 2 minutes. That didn't last long, unfortunately. I thought the show was all right for the time, but hey, shows come and go. That's just the way the business is. But yeah, there were some creative death scenes, especially when Freddy is in the shape of a television, grabs the girl, welcome to primetime blank,
right?
Crushes her skull on the TV. That was something.
Well, my personal would have been Philip's death. Yeah. The puppeting.
Oh man, yeah. Oof.
God, I got to tell you something. I saw that. I saw that before it was edited down.
Sure.
Yeah, when it was in its really long form, and we went out to Photochem, which was developing our film.
Mm-hmm.
And they had just cut that together, and I got a great opportunity to watch it when it was barely put together, and oh my God, it was the scene of ripping the arms out was slower, and it was just so graphic, and oh my God, I mean you just walked out of that. We all walked out of the theater going, that was horrendous.
Absolutely. Very creative deaths for certain characters battling, getting to battle back with Freddy a little bit. Now, did you get a chance to, I know you said most of the time you were just setting up shots, getting things ready, make sure everything was going properly. Did you have any funny or, goofy times on set with any of the actors that you did have a chance to spend some time with? Anything with Robert Englund or, hey, what was it? Patricia or Lawrence Fisher? Did you get to see any of those guys?
Well, yeah, no, I saw these people all the time. I mean, it's just that most of my interactings and arguments and discussions were with the people that were running things, but I remember Kincaid coming through the wall.
Oh yeah.
I was on the other side of that. I was more on the sets on Nightmare on Elm Street 4. And I remember one time I stopped Lisa. Yeah. Lisa Wilcox. I stopped Lisa, and we were talking about something, and another Lisa Wilcox walked past me, and then there was another one on some kind of rig that we were standing right next to, and there was one like walking down that way. We were just commenting of how many doubles she had, of how many different Lisa Wilcox there were right at that moment on the stage when we were working on Nightmare on Elm Street 4, because it was just absolutely ludicrous. Robert was really funny to work with, because I remember I used to go into his trailer a lot, and one time I was at the end of the day, I was walking him out of the stage, and we walked along, you know, and basically what it was the stage, and the trailers sort of had a ring around the stage on the outside of it with a lane between the building and then a lane and then the trailers, and the trailers were end on end on end on end all the way around the building. And they had security everywhere because, you know, the security had to be like pretty tight. But I remember as he came out of the building, he's ripping off pieces of the makeup. You know, sometimes sometimes he would have it gently taken off, but sometimes if his face felt like it and he hadn't had it on for too long, he could just rip it off. Right. And he was ripping it off and he's just dropping it on the ground as we go. And for some reason, as we got to the door of his trailer, I said something I laughed and I said something about, well, aren't you just a litter bug? And he goes, oh, you mean the pieces of face? And he goes, yeah, look back. And I looked. Now you got to remember, this is 4:00 in the morning, right?
Oh boy.
And I turn around and I look back and there's nothing there. And I guess what it is like there were, you know, collectors and kids all in the bushes that were on the other side of the trailers and hidden underneath the trailers, just waiting for him to walk out and throw pieces or throw stuff out. I was like, holy shit. Yeah.
Oh,
popular
boy.
guy.
I will say that is very true. Now, to show our audience, for those of you who are watching at home, and yes, we are going to be monitoring the chat. If you have any questions, drop them for Mick. We will get to those in a few moments. But I do want to bring this up because this kind of leads into the next thing here. Now, when exactly did you come up with the idea of putting together, or should I say be writing a book about your memories of working on A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master, with this bad boy right here behind the screams, The Dream Master's revealed?
I remember that.
So when did you come up with the idea of putting this book together?
Oh, maybe about 3 years ago. I had been to enough cons at that point, conventions and stuff. It was a funny thing because I like probably 6 years ago, I had never even known that such a thing as fandoms for a film that I had worked on existed. I was still working in town, and if you work in town, you know, you're only as good as like the thing that you did yesterday, right? And so you never think about, you know, things that you did, you know, 20 years ago or 30 years ago or 40 years ago. It just never even burns a brain cell. And so I got to the point of going, oh my God, there's people out there that are fans of it and that even know my name. And after a while, I sort of got used to it, and I kind of threw my head into the ring to talk to fans and stuff. And eventually I began to realize that I had heard the same kind of lame stories about the films over and over and over again. Right. And I thought that they weren't the interesting stories at all about Nightmare on Elm Street 4, for instance. And so I sat down to kind of set the record straight and kind of tell the whole story about what was going on. And in the book, I interview everybody from Robert Englund all the way down to like the prop people. And well, you've read the book. I mean, what do you think of it?
Yeah, after reading, after having the opportunity to sit down, read this bad boy, and yes, it is autographed. It's very nice, by the way. Very, very good writing here. It's better than my chicken. It's probably better than my chicken scratch. But I'll tell you something. The book was good. I got a lot out of it. It was fun learning some of the behind-the-scenes secrets and stories of what it takes to put these productions together, and also something that I didn't know that I learned throughout this book. And I don't want to give too much away because I want to. If anyone's interested in purchasing this book, you should, because it's a really great page turner. It tells you a lot of great stories about how films put together, behind the scenes kind of things, and interviews with certain cast and crew members that took part in these projects. But I have to say, I didn't know that if not one or two of them, I think the one that you specifically worked on was non-union.
Oh yeah, no, they were both.
I didn't have a clue that was non-union because the production value and the way the film was presented, and after me sitting down and watching it, all of you guys did a heck of a job.
Oh yeah, you have to understand that at that point, by the time the late '80s came around, the non-union crews were had absolutely come. Not only had they come of age, but they were doing a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that were being bought by the union crews, right? A lot of the makeup effects, a lot of the mechanical effects were being, a lot of the equipment rentals and the making of some of the modern equipment was being done by non-union company. We were like the big new wave that came in. And if you looked at it in another, 4 years or so, then all the people that were union were the brand new spanking guys that had come in, that the kind of guys that worked on Nightmare on Elm Street 4. I mean, nowadays there's a clear demarcation between union and non-union. But the thing is there wasn't as much as of a demarcation at the time because the union and non-union worlds kind of worked together. And nowadays the same thing is just starting to happen again. It wasn't until the 90s that you got into this, let's draw the line. And part of it was because the people that were non-union in the 80s came up in the 90s and decided to be dicks about it and say, well, we're drawing the line here, right? And I just have to say, when they said that, and even I was kind of like part of like one of the guys holding back and going, if you do that, what's going to happen is the rest of the damn world is going to start making films. And little did I know how right I was. And then along came the digital revolution to make it easier. So the unions have been kind of blown apart, except for the very, very expensive films, and all the expensive films are marvels. It's not let's go to the movies anymore. It's let's go to the Marvels.
Yeah, sad to say, but that is very true. But going back to your book for just a second, aside from discovering that about Nightmare on Elm Street 4 being non-union, how long did it take you and your friend Blake Best to put this book together? How long did it take to write it?
About 7 months. And I'm writing another one now that's the sequel to that. And the sequel to it is going to be called Behind the Screams 3.
I see. You skipped once, went on to 3. Okay.
You know why?
I'm curious why.
Because just like New Line Cinema, I'm skipping the second, just like New Line Cinema should have.
I see where you're going with that there, young sir. I see where you're going with that. Well, that's great news to hear. We look forward to seeing how it all turns out. Look forward to purchasing a copy of it when it becomes available to the fans, to the general public, all that good stuff. Now, we have a question here in the chat as we go along, and this is from John. He says, does Mick have any advice for someone who is interested in getting into production design?
Oh boy, any advice? I don't know anything about it these days. The thing about being a production designer is that you really need to know all about filmmaking. I would suggest getting on some small films and working in the art department, but then working as many departments as possible, because the production designer is the guy that visually pulls all this shit together and makes it look overall the way that you want. And a lot of people have said to me, well, the classical definition of production designer is that you're pulling together just the costumes and just possibly the costumes, but just the art department. And that's a bunch of shit. Because if you really want to, if it's really your job to pull the look of together of a film, then you better know something about lighting, and you better know something about gripology, and you better know something about all the props, and you better know something about periods and furniture, and you better know about color, and you got to know about lighting. And here's the thing: you also have to know effects, and you have to know how your effects are going to look, because any one of those things could be a fart on your look. And the thing is, you might as well be on there. You need to know about locations, and you need to know. I mean, I got to tell you, when I was at my peak on a show, a cameraman, I could literally tell you the lenses a cameraman was going to use before we got to a set, because I knew what the parameters were going to be. So, I mean, you need to know that kind of stuff. And the more that you know, it's sort of like NBC. It's the more you know.
And yes, I, along with many others, certainly remember those jingles or those PSAs that they would play towards the end of every show. I mean, heck, I remember watching episodes of SVU, and they would do it.
See, I consider myself the rainbow.
Okay, that's fair enough. That is fair enough. Absolutely, that is fair enough. Well, thank you for answering that. We do appreciate it. To have a little bit of fun on this Halloween 2020, as if 2020 itself hasn't been creepy enough. Here's something for you, Mick. What's the funniest place you've ever fallen asleep?
Oh, that's an easy one. On Nightmare on Elm Street 3, we built a set, this huge set over in the corner, or not on the corner. It was like all along the backside of one of the stages. And it was like a three-quarter scale version of an alley. And it was for when Taryn gets shot up by Freddy.
Yes.
And I reduced the scale of it a little bit so that they would look kind of bigger than life when they were in it. When people were in it, you would have to feel that there was something really torquishly wrong with it. And thing is it had curbs, and it had all gutter trash and everything that you can imagine in it. All clean, of course, and sterilized. But the thing is what we had done is we closed that set off and not put a way into it. And for the reason is that it was one of the first ones that we built, and it wasn't particularly on the schedule. You have to understand that it was just her and Freddy. And because of that, it could be pre-lit and just sat there in case something else went wrong. So it pretty much just sat there, and I closed it off so that nobody could get to it and mess with it. But then I left myself a little bolt hole just under it. It's a half a fake door right under the name Jake's.
Yes.
It says Jake's in the neon. Well, just underneath it, there's a little half door. Means that's all it possibly could be, because of the steps that led down. So I would crawl in through the half door, and I would go over, and I had put a cot just on one of the sidewalks so that I could get some sleep. And I fell off the cot at some point, taking a nap, and I woke up and I was in the gutter, and I was like, wow, it was just for a fraction, but just for a fraction of a second, it was like, wow, man, I have fallen a long, long way. I thought I was in the gutter, and I was like, and just for a fraction, it was like, shit, I don't remember any of this. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh God, yes, I do. I couldn't tell which one was worse. Waking up in a gutter, or waking up in a fake gutter.
Long night at the office, folks.
Long night at the office, folks.
It does tend to happen. That's a heck of a story. So So the next thing I got for you on this lovely Saturday of Halloween, what is something you get wrong almost every time you do it?
You mean as a set or just
No, anything. It could be anything. What is something that you get wrong almost every time you do it? It could be making a decision about something. It could be going to get something. It could be trying to figure out what's next or something like that. It could be anything. What is something you get wrong almost every
freeway
time?
Freeway off-ramps.
Freeway off-ramps. Okay, that's something you get wrong almost every time you try to get
terrible.
off of it?
I'm terrible about it. I'm that guy that all of a sudden, is in the fast lane and all of a sudden within a 16th of a mile, does that and it comes over on the side. But can I just throw something in on that?
Yeah,
is
sure.
Jerry Garcia, my favorite guitarist, used to say that the things that create your style are the things that you do wrong again and again and again and again until they're right.
Wow. That is very insightful.
I'm just saying.
Now that I think about it. That's good stuff. Man, good,
there you go.
Good pull there. Now, if you were stranded on what is known as a deserted island and you could choose just one person to keep you company, who would it be?
My wife. I know. How boring is that?
No, it's an excellent choice. What about one animal?
An animal?
That you can keep with you on this island.
Can it be as specific as a pet that you've lost over the years?
Could be anything. Yes, you can use your imagination. It's fine.
I had a little dog about 7 years ago, and I'd love to have him back. A little tiny Chihuahua, and he was I love that dog. Be nice to have it back,
All right, right on.
It's not like I'm gonna have a pet turtle. Fuck that. You ever tried to pet a turtle?
I did have a box turtle when I was a kid.
I know. I've got a house in Tennessee now, and I have snapping turtles down on the creek in my property, and they're the most disgusting things. Man, they raise their heads and come after you, and you're just like, holy shit. You think turtles are slow? They're not.
Well, instead of the snapping turtles, would you prefer that they be Teenage Mutant Ninja kind of turtles?
Oh, well, I have a very funny mutant ninja teenage ninja story. You want to hear it?
Sure.
Well,
why
that's
not?
what you're here for. You know what?
No, why not?
You're trapped, motherfuckers. This is the way it's going to be.
Go ahead.
Okay. So, Sarah Risser is. Do you know who that is?
Someone who worked at New Line, right?
Well, she still works at New Line, or kind of.
Okay.
She was she and Bob were the co-executive producers of everything.
Yes.
And one of her primary jobs was to bring stuff to New Line Cinema. And so I happened to come into the office. I can't remember at what point it was. It must have been, sometime in the mid 80s or something. And I was waiting to have an argument with somebody. And I'm sitting there, and I look up and I go, oh, well, Sarah's around. I'll go shoot the shit with her. So I go into her office, and we're talking back and forth, and Sarah goes, I gotta tell you, you know what? The men around here, that it's like an old boys club. I mean, they won't take a great idea when it's staring them right in the face. I go, well, really? What's a great idea? And she goes, I have this new film. We can do a negative pickup for $3 million. It's absolutely clean. And not only that, it's a great film. It's going to make us a ton of money. I just can't talk everybody. I can't talk anybody into it. I said, well, what's it all about? And she says, well, it's about these turtles. These turtles that are played by. I said, what do you mean turtle? And she goes, it's these guys in suits that are these turtle suits, and it's off of a cartoon strip, And she went on to tell me all about it, and I being a guy, I just like get glossed over me. I mean, I had no power in these things, but eventually she did convince Bob to buy it, and it was the Teenage Ninja Turtles. So I just thought that was really funny. It's these turtles. These turtles.
Yeah. And
which was great because, the first thing I thought of was, turtles.
Right. Well, the film itself, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, it just turned 30 years old a few months ago, the 1990 film.
Yep. I'm telling you. Some of the things people will film. Ugh.
Time flies. And they're actually putting that movie itself, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, back in theaters, brought to you by Fathom Events on November the 5th and 7th.
Really? Well, there you go.
Yes.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, to help bring some people back into the theaters, get the families coming in there, bring the kids, celebrate 30th anniversary. Personally, one of my favorite movies I remember growing up as a kid on. So good stuff. Good offer for those of you who are just wondering. Fun fact for those kids out there. But I will say this. Do you have any upcoming projects that you can tell us about?
I do, as a matter of fact. I have a film coming up that I'm going to be directing. It's called In the Pines, The House in the Pines. And it's going to be a horror, gang style, kids lost in the woods with a ghost, typical film. It's really a super interesting script. And I've taken a stab at making it even more interesting. And I think it's going to be it's going to be an iconic film. I really am not kidding. This is going to be a good one.
Oh, I'm excited. I can't wait to hear more about it as we go along. Look forward to seeing it when it eventually releases, once we get a release date and a whole bunch of other details. Looking forward to seeing that come to fruition.
So am I.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be a blast. Now, to kind of wrap things up here, where can everyone find you on social media? And if they're interested in purchasing a copy of this awesome-tacular book, Behind the Screams, The Dream Masters Revealed, where can they find it?
Well, you can always DM me at Mick Strawn on Facebook. What you need to do is you need to actually messenger me, because if you just friend request me, I get pretty far behind with that stuff. But messenger me that you want to buy a book, and I'll show you how to do it. I've intentionally kind of made the process difficult because it's a great book and I don't care that much. Once I get the third one out, then I'll release it on Amazon and it'll go nuts. But this is the early version. So, but it is really a great book. So DM me. I'm also on Twitter at MQ3. I'm also on, I think that's my Twitter handle, and I think that's also my Instagram handle. If it isn't, find me. Go ahead, work it out. Other than that, I'm everywhere shouting everything whenever I can.
Absolutely. We want to take this opportunity to thank Mick Strawn for being with us today on this episode of our interview series, and happy Halloween to all of you out there. Thank you for those of you who have been watching, commenting in the chat. And by the way, those funny questions that we were asking Mick a little bit earlier on, this episode is powered by pod decks. Pod decks are decks of cards for podcasters. You can use them for interviews. There's a deck to help you come up with some new ideas for your episodes, for your podcast, all that kind of stuff. So go to poddecks.com today. Buy yourself a deck of cards from Poddecks, because if you enter the promo code NerdCulture at checkout, you are going to get 10% off your order. So if you're just starting out as a podcaster, or if you've been doing it for a number of years, check them out on all forms of social media at Poddecks. In the meantime, my name is Ryan of Nerd Culture. You can find me and everything that we're doing here on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at It's Nerd Culture. We drop new videos every week. And in the meantime, enjoy your weekend. Stay healthy, stay safe, stay strong. Have a happy and safe Halloween. And hey, if you're looking for something to watch tonight in celebration of Halloween, check out A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors or A Nightmare on Elm Street 4 The Dream Master. Trust me, you will not regret it.
You're
Have
going
a
to
good
like
one,
it.
everybody.
Thanks, guys. Bye.